opportunity to present today. So in this short presentation, I'd like to focus on an introduction to spend management and discuss where we're currently at. What does good spend management look like with examples of best-in-class examples? And also I'll touch upon the consequences of not following best practice and how we at ProSpend help our customers with the platform. And it's quite timely. I like to think of this time of year of implementing financial New Year's resolutions. We all do the same thing at December, January when we decide to lose weight and do all that good stuff. But businesses should be the same as well. And a new financial year, new opportunities come up to do things better. And hopefully after today's presentation, you'll get a few ideas of how you can look after your business spend better with ProSpend. So let's take a look at an introduction into business spend management. So what are the biggest spend hurdles as per independent research? So here are some facts and figures to the biggest hurdles with processing business spend for 2022 and 2023. So I find these findings are pretty consistent and well documented with other research papers. This one is from Ardent Partners. The theme focuses on inefficiencies, which Charlie touched upon, which is caused by all those manual processes, which if you think about it, causes all that unnecessary administration, bureaucracy, and when you're doing more of that kind of stuff, it can lead to your data errors, which obviously makes it harder to do that reporting cadence at the end of that. So also without capturing and processing data through automation, obviously again, touching on that manual correction of data and providing those unnecessary delays for approving information, which, can cause the late payments resulting in friction with either your suppliers or your employees in the business. So what does good business spend look like? So sorry about this. I've put together this mathematical formula on how I interpret what good spend looks like. So really, it's a combination of having good policies with procedures about the business spend in the organization, who are the approvers, and what is the authority to approve the business spend. Also, it's all about identifying the different workflows to how business spend gets approved with budgetary constraints, allowing all those involved to understand and how to keep control on that bottom line. And likewise, we've got very complex approval workflows that we can use in the system. So, depending on the transaction that you're looking to approve, it may be a project-based transaction, it may be a cost center based transaction. So therefore, one individual may have approvals going to different people in that organization, which we can cater for. And this is where we come into it with, the equation here is the policies, the authorities, the approval processes, and the budgets. But when you implement software, you get that extra gain. So it's not just a simple multiplication, it's to the power of. And this is how we achieve those best-in-class status, and also providing the governance and controls to the workflows by which an organization is controlled and operates, and also the mechanisms by which its people are held to account, which I think is very important. So this also removes data, like I said before, also removes the data entry, meaning data can be auto-coded correctly to the correct supplier, general ledger accounts, sub-account, project, and it's also supported by all those approval workflows directing the data to the correct approver. And this provides a seamless automated flow of data, therefore removing those silos and making everybody accountable. So what does good look like? So here are some examples of how automation supported by those good internal policies and procedures can make your team more efficient by working smarter, not harder. And as you can see, there are significant time gains to be made by having data structured and automated. Again, this Ardent research paper has further examples of what best in class looks like. But here's just 3 examples of, on the left-hand side, worked where you could be if you was doing this manually, but on the right-hand side, giving you an idea of how this looks when you start to automate those processes, followed by those good policies and procedures and those workflows to move data around. So moving on, understanding the best practices in business spend management. So to help with becoming better with business spend governance, you firstly need to establish clear and concise spend management policies that outline the rules and guidance for employees. So the software is not going to make these policies up for you. These are things that you need to decide upon as a business, how you want to work with this. And then the software will then ensure you enforce those rules. So these policies should obviously cover all aspects of spend management, including procurement, expenses, reimbursements, and travel expenses. Using automation along with hand in hand with prescribed policies allows you to capture the data and move that data correctly to the correct people to streamline the spend management process. This includes automating invoice processing, approval, expenses, reporting, and payment processing. Also, you need to define the roles and responsibilities of employees involved in the spend management process. So establish those clear levels of authority for approving expenses and those purchasing decisions in the business. Once those roles are determined, then implement a streamlined and efficient approval process. That ensures expenses are reviewed and approved in a timely manner with the full audit tracking. This includes setting clear approval thresholds, establishing those approval workflows based on rules, and also providing the training to employees on what those approval processes are. Finally, to work with this, you need to develop a comprehensive budgeting process. So ensuring people know what they've got to spend and also align this with the company's strategic goals and objectives. This includes developing a budgetary framework, establishing those budget guidelines and monitoring actual spend against budget and giving that full visibility to all those involved. And again, automation can clearly identify when budgets have been exceeded and automatically reject spend requests. So finally, the ensure that staff payments, including reimbursements and supplier payments, are all processed in a timely manner. So this includes setting clear payment terms, monitoring payment processing times, and ensuring that those payments are made with the agreed upon timeframes in the business. So how does the digitization benefit a business? So as a result of implementing best practice, I found some more research on how a business can achieve these result gains, which is backed by the independent research at the bottom of the screen. And as you can see, some of these improvements complement each other. So obviously, reducing fraud will have an impact on both your working capital and also your costs. So again, I want to share with you a number of research articles on how we can improve business spend. And my key takeouts from this is the positive impact automation has hand in hand with policies and budgetary control and how that plays in helping a business with improving their business spend. So I'll share these articles to those on today's webinar. Some of these are not in the public domain, but those that are on the public domain, I will share those with you. But a lot of these can be found just through Google. So let me return back to my favorite report from Ardent Partners. So this is my first key takeaway from that report, which I wanted to share with you. And what we're seeing is that business spend is gaining strategic value, increasing over 30% over the past 4 years. So my gut feeling to why we are seeing this is businesses are starting to mature and understanding to mature their understanding and development on how they work with cloud and using that technology to digitize manual tasks to also allow them to make those incremental improvements to business performance. And my second gut feeling is that finance leaders are now being more empowered to be innovation leaders within their organization and take a more active role in the IT used within the business, more so than say 5 years ago. The next key takeaway is the five main improvements that businesses will make in relation to business spend. And again, these themes complement each other with digitization and automation assisting with improving collaboration and creating an innovation culture within the business. So if you think about innovation, you might think it's the IT department responsible, but each individual um, unit within the business can be responsible for their adoption of IT. So if you think of marketing and the marketing solutions out there, warehouse solutions, finance and procurement is no different. And like I said previously, finance leaders are now being asked to be more innovative and responsible for those IT decisions. The final key takeaway I wanted to share with today with you guys is also from the Ardent report, and this is the new skills needed to remain relevant in AP. So as you can see, those skills are mostly a mixture of soft skills and analytical skills, removing the mundane data entry skills, which add little value to the business. So when you talk about automation, the first thing people think of is, I'm going to lose my job. But we're not looking to replace people. We're looking to give them back time to provide more value-add responsibilities to allow them to be more creative and help improve the business. And finance is no different to any other part of the business. So what are the consequences of living with the status quo? Again, I'll share the links to the above research in the public domain to those on today's webinar, but these are my key takeaways, and really I want to focus in on number 4 from this list, which can equate to about 20% of a working week being reclaimed to do more value-added tasks. And also number 5, the reporting you do as a business is only good as the data that you have collected, which why digitization and automation are vital are vital in improving business spend management. So the benefits of using ProSpend as business management platform. So how do we help businesses? So we provide a complete solution for business spend management for both AP and expenses, allowing you to automate the collection and coding of data backed by our platform features that allow you to monitor budgets, approve data in a timely manner, highlight potential fraud, and is all backed with your internal SSO security controls. Our software connects employees' expenses to their managers or approvers, and once approved, connecting to the back office admin team with finance responsible for making the payment. Finally, before the demo, there are a number of benefits associated, and I just wanted to focus in on the virtual cards, which is kind of one of our hero products that we launched this year to complement the business spend platform. So some of these benefits that we've got with working with virtual cards, and Dante will demonstrate some of this, how it's set up and how it can be used in a moment. But the first advantage is it's being instant. So if you think about having to issue a corporate credit card to an employee in the business, you kind of need to wait between 14 and 21 days for the bank to issue a corporate card. So in situations where a new employee is required to say go away on a training, a card can be issued immediately from ProSpend to that person. So again, you're removing the friction of that employee having to use their own card. You also have a choice of issuing a temporary card for those who need it for a one-time activity, such as attending a company event interstate, or there are permanent cards that can be used for regular everyday usage. Plus, all these expenses on the virtual cards are backed by our expense management software, allowing you to reduce admin time and quickly produce your expense report for approval. Also, you can remove friction of employees having to use their own personal cards by issuing virtual cards, which do come with spend controls such as daily and maximum limits and restrictions on certain merchant category codes such as gambling. They're also deemed safer than a physical card, and you have complete control. So should you need to deactivate a card or change limits, this can be done easily by your admin without the need to speak to your banking provider. So finally, before we moved into the demo, just last slide. We have a number of customer success stories, but the one I've picked up today is one that does relate a lot to some of the themes that we've discussed already today by creating those efficiencies through less time needed to code and reconcile data through the digitization and automation of our platform. So this company here is a not-for-profit. They are audited every year, and the critical need was the ability to track who spent what, where, and why. So ProSpend comes with full audit trail, so every expense has a history of creation, changes, and approvals. So now I'd like to hand over to my colleague Dante, who will give you a brief demonstration of the software.
How ProSpend can revolutionize your expense management and AP automation. So I'm going to jump into the platform and show you how we use our virtual cards. As Carl has mentioned before, we have two various different types of cards. So we have our ProSpend card, which is the regular recurring cards for those individuals that need to use their cards on a monthly basis. We can restrict it by daily transaction limits, or we can do weekly transaction limits, or monthly, or even at a transaction limit as well. I'll show you how we issue that into a user, and then also I'll go through the Protem cards, which is the temporary cards that have an expiry date. So I'm just going to log in now as an admin user. So this would be an accounts person. So there's a few ways to be able to issue a card to a person in the platform. So in the manage sections, we have where we can manage our cards. But before we do that, I'll just highlight how our cards work as a whole. So our cards are effectively a debit card. So there's a centralized balance where the funds will be kept. So you can see I'm very rich at the moment, and we have bank details for each client. So as a client, you'll have your own banking information where you'll be transferring funds into our financial institution that we've partnered with, which is Wise, formerly TransferWise. And from there, every transaction that occurs, the funds will be then reduced from that balance. We have some alerts that can occur where it will notify you if the value is lower than what the limits are. And also the links to the cards are actually not that you have to update and top up the cards directly. So they're held within the actual card itself against the user. So let's just go through and show you how a card is issued. So this is a ProSpend card, a regular normal card. So if we go into our treasury section again, we can go into our managed cards. I'll just log in as an admin, just give me 1 second. And in that section, we've got our managed cards like I was before, and then we can issue a card directly to a staff member. So we've got our two-factor authentication enabled. Our system has that enabled because it is a financial instrument that you are issuing to a user. So I'll just go into my authenticator app to issue the card under Jackie. From here, we've got our entry screen, and here we can put in different pieces of information around the lifetime limit of the card. So let's say we had a limit of $200,000, let's say for the duration, so the term of the card. We can put in transaction limits like we've said before. We can put daily limits, monthly limits. Typically, you'd put in a monthly limit. So let's say we had a $10,000 limit, and then we can put some rules around that. We can limit the different industries that someone buys, spends money against their card. So they're called merchant category codes. So we've got that facility. So if there are transactions that you didn't want to occur in gaming or in alcohol or at bars, we can actually limit that so that way when they try and use their card, it prevents them from spending on that card. So now we would link it to a user in the system. So I'm linking this to Kylie as my user. Then I'll just need to put in the mobile number for her number. That way we have information around that for two-factor authentication. So when she needs to reveal her card details, it'll be able to be linked to Google Pay or Apple Wallet, and then our company information. That's just a simple process to be able to do that, and then we can issue that card. So now, if I log in as Kylie, she'll be able to see that card in her wallet. So I'm going to revert now to the phone app. So we have Google and iOS apps available for end users. So I'm just going to log in now under that. All right, so yeah, just as I was mentioning before, the card holder would be able to, or the user in the system would be able to go in have a look at their card by clicking at the bottom where the card section is, going into which card is relevant for them. I've got a few because this is a demo, and it's just a matter of them revealing that information by putting in their security code, which is linked to Google Authenticator, to be able to then link it to Apple Pay or Google Wallet by entering it in, or they could alternatively just scan that directly into their app as well. So then they can transact on that card instantaneously. So as you can see, the card's been issued in real time straight away to the user. There's no application process to be able to receive that from the bank and provide ID. It's an instant card that's issued, and then the limits are applied straight away. So when they go through and spend some money on their card, I'll show you that process and how that works. So the end user will go through and then transact, and then they'll capture that receipt in our app here. So you can see in the receipt section here, we've got a plus icon and we can capture a new receipt. There is some other options here in terms of requesting a card. So instead of me going through and issuing a card as an admin, I could actually request for a card within your mobile app if I needed a card for a regular monthly spend, or I could request a Protem card. So that temporary card to be able to then have an activity that has an expiry date. So let's say I was going on a trip and I needed some funds for hotel and accommodation. We can request that card. It can go through a workflow approval, and then it can be then issued by the admin. So then they get that card, and then they can put limits on that as well, and it will expire after a certain time. So let's just go through, capture a receipt at the time of purchasing. I've got a receipt here. It's just a matter of us attaching that receipt, or we could just take a photo of that receipt. So obviously we can attach that from our gallery in our phone app. And in terms of what our system handles, the scanning of the receipt, that's all handled by our OCR. So you don't need to worry about any amounts or the currency or the GST on the actual receipt. All that's going to be populated along with the date and the merchant or supplier name. In terms of the coding here, it's defaulting to where I belong. We handle multi-entity structures within our platform in the one data file if you'd like, and then also different departments. So in terms of Kylie, she works for finance at Jim's Construction as a company. All she needs to really worry about is maybe put in a description. So let's say it's some lunch, and then it's just a matter of me then hitting save. So then the scanning will occur then, and then once that transaction clears from the spend on our ProSpend card, then that receipt will be automatically moved across from here to the claim itself. So I've got a claim that's been building from all the transactions that I've spent money on, and it's sitting here. So that's an automatic feed that's coming through from the bank as well for that card. You can see here I've got a ProSpend card claim here, and I've got a receipt that's already been matched off. So that would just add to that once that transaction comes through from the merchant for $7, and then that receipt would come across. And this is how it's showing here. So you can see I've got that card, I've got the dates ranges for that period, which is based on a calendar month. And then we've got our default approver based on my department. We can have different approval workflows, can be quite simple or quite complex. It's really up to you and how we set them up. They're all custom and how we can set them up in your system. And so let's go into this transaction. So we've got some staff amenities here. This is the information that's coming directly from the bank. The date of the expense, it was a Coles merchant or Coles supplier, and then the amounts here. So all these amounts are coming directly from the bank, and the GST components are all coming from the scanning of that receipt. So you can see there's that receipt that's been attached automatically from when we've taken that photo from there. Okay, there is different things that we can do here. So let's say they accidentally put things in as personal, they could then mark that as personal. But what happens after this is once that claim is ready to be sent off at the end of the month to get it approved, it would go through a workflow approval to then approve that spend as well. And then it'll be sent through to your accounting system. We handle quite a few different accounting systems in terms of integrations. So MyAB Advanced, NetSuite, Sage, that's just to name a few. We also handle the smaller ones as well, like Xero, MyAB AccountWrite, but we handle 50 different systems with integrations. So most likely we'll have an integration with your accounting system. So I want to just go through and show you how we issue a Protem card, how we request one as well, just so you can see that interactively in the platform as well. So let's just go back into the section of receipts. And if we go to the plus icon, we can then do a Protem card request here. So what will happen there is basically we're doing a spend request or raising a purchase order effectively to ask for that spend. So you can see I've got that Protem card request. I'm choosing a card, a new card that I want, and I'm putting in the values that I want to claim for. So it's based on me adding in the lines of expenses, or that what we could call order lines, let's say. And it's just a matter of me then putting in a date. So when I expect to have this card expire. So let's say we've got some spend on the weekend because we're going away to a conference on maybe on Sunday, and then we need it to end on the Monday. So it's just a matter of me putting in exactly what we had before, a little bit of information just for the Google Authenticator app, and then the address. And if we hit save, then it's going to ask us to add in more information around our spend. So what it is, so we could put information around the supplier if we know it. We've chosen a hotel, let's say, or airline, and obviously we haven't spent the money yet, or we haven't personally done that. So we could anticipate that the cost might be, $200, $300, let's say, for airfare, and then we're linking that to our expenses. So the listing of expenses would show up here, and that's based on how you want that set up. And we would map that out and link that to your accounting chart of accounts. So I've just got the one expense showing here, but obviously we might have a different one. We might have some airfares here. We might have some different types of costs, and then that would come through here. And we could even link it to a project. So let's just say it's a flight. And we can have some custom fields that appear as well. You can see I've got a bit more information around where the flight's going to, where we're arriving, some dates. So that can all be reported on internally in our system. And some of it can be also pushed out to your accounting system, depending on what system you have as well. So it's just a matter of me saving that. I could attach some screenshots or some PDFs or some information around what quotes I've got. And then we hit save. And then we can go ahead and then submit this off for approval, and then this card can go through a workflow approval depending on how you want it to be, and then issued off to that person for a temporary card. Okay, so I guess that concludes the demonstration, just showing virtual cards as a whole. I'm going to hand over to Shadi just to finalize, and any questions you might have, feel free to stay around and talk.
No, that's great, Dante. I mean, that virtual card application is pretty much, in my mind, a game changer. When you look at the hassle of either issuing corporate cards, physical corporate cards, or staff having to pay out of their pocket for reimbursement, this solves all that. So I'm going to see a quite sort of high adoption around this area. And I know from you guys, it's fairly new. It's a fairly new feature. I don't know how long exactly it's been out, but certainly a game changer. And I wanted you guys to see this today because we pretty much got an idea of how AP automation works. So this was really great to sort of give a bit of a teaser on this application in itself. There are no questions so far, but I did make a few points or notes that I'd like to just discuss. Around AP automation specifically, at what point is a business suitable to adopt such technology?
Do you want me to answer that?
Well, from my experience in sales and clients coming on board, it really doesn't really have limitations. I had actually just had a client that signed up with 30 invoices per month.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's all the number of transactions. And they see the benefit of using our platform purely for purchase orders and budget control. So they're taking on our PO module as well as our budget module. They get funding for education, and they want to be able to then raise purchase orders against that budget to be able to see how much money they've got left, basically. So it really doesn't have to be limited just to invoice automation. Yes, you get rid of that data entry, and in the pains of going through and entering in every month same invoices, you've also got the controls in place as well. So there isn't really any limitation, and our clients can be at 30 invoices. We've got some clients at 20,000 invoices per month.
Yeah, okay.
Just add to that, Shadi, is a lot of businesses that have generic email addresses, so accounts at alphabiz.com. support@alphabiz.com. So a lot of these email addresses are prone to phishing attacks. So what we do is we offer an individualized email address for those AP invoices to come to. So we capture them and put them into a specific receipt vault, and that email address is a lot more difficult to crack than accounts at or finance at. So again, it's providing that extra layer of security to save yourself from phishing attacks. So if you do get an email into accounts and it's an AP invoice, and you have onboarded your suppliers correctly with the correct email address to use, then that obviously comes through as an exception. And again, it raises the alarm bells. Is this just a mistake that somebody's gone off and worked with a supplier that we don't know about, or is this a phishing attack? So it allows you to capture that information quickly. It's that finding the needle in a haystack a lot quicker through that automation process.
And it's such a big talking point. It's such a critical aspect that a lot of people are still not taking seriously, especially small, business operators. So yeah, if you can avoid that fraud avoidance, or add that extra layer of security, like you said, it's almost like it needs to happen, especially around AP, right?
Yeah, definitely.
They're getting a lot more creative, these hackers. So
yeah, and even just on invoice, at an invoice level, when a PDF of invoice comes through to our system, we do a validation against the banking information. So that's one thing that we look at, the supplier record. And depending on what system you've got, we can pull that banking information directly from your master data. So from your accounting system, all the BSB account and account names straight into our master data. But obviously you can enter that into our system as well. But then we do a scan of that invoice to make sure they match the master data. So that way, if they have intercepted that, put their own bank details, or the bank details have changed, we've got that validation and that check as well in place.
Yeah, great. Carl, you made the statement or observation that business owners or decision makers are sort of taking that direct action in adopting this technology and not getting IT involved. I think I know the answer, but do you want to share, why that is?
Correct. Well, I mean, obviously, as a finance leader, you understand the pains and the challenges that you face within your department. And therefore, you know exactly what it is that you're looking for to solve those problems. So again, it's more of a responsibility is falling on these department heads to, go and find the right tech that's available to work with them. So, some cases, if you're using a specific ERP and accounting system, a lot of these companies have the apps marketplace whereby they can just go in. But, my advice is always to, go back to your ERP provider or your accounting provider and ask them for their advice, because they would have looked and evaluated a number of different products in market and come up with what they feel is the best fit for the clients that they serve. So that's what we're seeing, and obviously, having that ability to improve, and a lot of it is KPI driven, and OKRs, all these fancy new acronyms about getting better performance out of individuals, and just measuring what they're doing to the business. And from finance, roll the clock back 10 years and it was all about, cost cutting and cost saving, where now it's all about, again, it still is a cost saving, but it's from a different perspective. It's, cost saving of human capital and allowing them time back to do, more analytical work that, can actually add value to the business rather than entering data or correcting errors or, all that kind of boring stuff, which we don't like doing as humans.
Yeah. And to add to that, I think also that it's a smaller footprint, meaning it doesn't require heavy infrastructure, so you can get it off the ground a lot quicker. It's all cloud, so eliminating the need for IT to really get involved, other than the aspect that it's just another security layer that they need to be across.
Correct. And an ERP implementation, I always look at it as a heart and lung transplant. It involves many parts of the business, working together, whereas obviously, you know, expenses and AP, it's led by the finance team. And obviously, you know, again, if you think about that budgetary control, it's finance that really tend to, you know, create the budgets. The policies and procedures on how you spend is really driven by finance as well. So you know, having that control from one source, it seems, you know, understandable that they're driving this decision-making process.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I do have a question that's come through, and we'll just finish off with this last question because we've got 2 more minutes left. Can AP automation use item code from ERP?
Yeah, definitely we can do that. So depending on the ERP, there are some systems that we work with already that we can map to that item code. So yeah, that's no drama at all. So I'd like to know a little bit more information around the ERP.
Yeah, this is more the MyHub Advanced product. So,
yeah, definitely. We've got quite a few MyHub Advanced, our early beginnings, and you know, regular, I'd say the most in terms of our clients who uses the most in terms of accounting systems, MyHub Advanced leads the way. So we've developed our system to have a really tight integration. So item codes definitely can be covered off on that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, and just a final piece from me, Shadi, before we wrap up.
Sure.
The platform, as you can see on the screen, you know, you can pick and choose which elements of the platform you want to implement. So it doesn't have to be a bigger project. You can just work off with the expenses or virtual cards, or you could start off with the AP automation and then add the purchase orders later. So it's don't look at the screen and think everything has to be adopted on day one. It can be a process that's rolled out on a time frame that works for you as a business.
Yeah. No, good stuff, Carl. Guys, thank you again, Carl and Dante. Appreciate the knowledge sharing and the presentation. To the attendees, I really value you attending and taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar. I hope it's been of value, and we will be uploading this to our YouTube channel and sharing the slides deck as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks all.
See you
Thanks,
guys.
Hardy.